What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome back into the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour. I am your host, or your co-host, your virtual bartender, Mr. Nick Teodoro. Joining me, as always, is my lovely tag team partner in life, my wife, Miss Nicole. Nicole, cheers. What are you drinking this evening?
As per usual, my Tito's orange juice and cranberry juice. What about you, Mr. Nick?
Mr. Nick's having some red wine to celebrate another great Friday, a long week as usual. Another great week in wrestling. We are on the road. We are in it. We are on the last exit towards WrestleMania. But before we get to that, we're not going to bury the lead. We're going to go right into it. We teased this all week. If you are a follower, again, oh yeah, just to mention, I always forget, if you're new here, please hit the old Samoan spike on the like button and make sure you subscribe. We'd like to see it every week.
Become a regular.
So anyway, getting right to our big announcement. We have talked about this for a little while. We're going to have our first guest on the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour. This Wednesday, April 3rd at 6 p.m. So our normal happy hour time in honor of WrestleMania week. WrestleMania is in Philadelphia. We have a former ECW heavyweight champion, a former ECW tag team champion, a WWFE hardcore champion. Ladies and gentlemen, we have on Wednesday's show the hardcore icon, PJ Polacco, formerly known as Just Incredible, one of the last ECW heavyweight champions, the real ECW.
But yeah, guys, we're so excited. We're going to have PJ on. We're going to ask him all the things about all the things. And it's just, I'm super excited and super nervous. Like, Nick does interviews and talks to people all the time. I'm like, but we're going to have him on. And it's going to be, guys, incredible.
Just incredible. So for that show, we're going to ask you all to participate. As always, you can write in your questions. We are going to have the phone lines open for a short period of time to ask PJ some questions. But here's the key. You got to be a subscriber. That's the rule.
Get on the socials, baby. Become a regular.
Exactly. And if you can't make it for some reason live, you can always watch the show later and you can submit your questions in. We finally now have an email. You can reach us.
Official.
It may be hard to read on there, but it is nickclubwhh@gmail.com. So submit your questions, and those will be every week as well for the regular shows. Could be topics, wrestlers, whatever you want to talk about.
Tell us what you're thinking and what you're drinking.
Exactly, the usual. So,
but we're so excited to have PJ on next week, so you guys better tune in.
Exactly. So now that we got that exciting news out of the way,
like Tony Khan making a big announcement.
Well, we thought about that. We were going to it was so exciting. Guys, I really wanted to make an announcement about this upcoming announcement. Next week's show, we're going to talk about when we're going to make this announcement. It's going to be epic. You're going to love it all. But, really excited.
Yeah, so we're being Tony Khan's and making an announcement. PJ is going to be on next week. Tune in. Now let's get it.
All right. Well, yeah. The regulars are getting rowdy already. They're pretty pumped. Lisa's writing in, whoop, whoop. That's so awesome. Dare I say, it's incredible.
Thank you, Lisa.
Ed's also in the chat, and he said she said the thing. Yeah.
I did the thing. I said the thing. It's so exciting, guys.
It's pretty exciting. So let's get into it. So stemming off of from last Friday's SmackDown, we had the Rock and Roman face-to-face showdown, which was, I guess, highly anticipated. It's anticipated because we've seen so many other people get involved in this, so at least that they're alone. So they had their face-to-face. I'll let Nikki go into greater details about how Roman kind of ran down Cody. But
we want to do Roman.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to kind of gloss over it.
I have three sticky notes on my laptop. It's SmackDown, Raw, and AEW, so I have to make sure I got the right sticky note. But for SmackDown, obviously, Roman comes out like 400 years later. He's like, acknowledge me. And then he sort of like runs down Cody, like Cody comes out. It was like a weird Roman was like, "You're an idiot. You're a moron. Like, you're so dumb. Like, you should have yourself. You're stupid. You'll never be a champion. Like, you trust my little brother Seth. Like, I know that you can trust him. Blah blah blah." And Cody was basically like, "Well, you know who took the belt off the Shield," which Cody eventually did. And he turned it around and he was like, "Oh, do you trust The Rock? Like, I'll put that back to you." Or he's like, "I'll raise you one." You know, it's like, "Can you trust The Rock?" And then he was like, "Oh, Cody, you're such a politician. Turn all the things around." And then they basically, because it was kind of mirrored what happened last year. Like, they go to like handshake, and then like Roman's like mugged him, and then like turned and like shook hands with Paul. And then he was like, "Oh, you're stupid." And then like he goes, on the outside the ring and his music hits. And then you see Solo and Jimmy come out from behind and like come meet him at the bottom of the ramp.
Very, very cinematic in the sense of, if you remember, like if you're an old like gangster, like mafia type like movie or series fan, that's what it reminded me of, like an old like Italian mob style like hit movie, like Boardwalk Empire. It reminded me of scenes from Boardwalk Empire back however many years ago with Steve Buscemi. There was one scene where Al Capone comes out and basically kind of saves him out of the woods. It's kind of an ambush. It reminded me so much of that scene from that season. I can't remember what season it is, but again, very cinematic with them coming out of this.
But also kind of the chef's kiss of it, that Cody's not a dum-dum, because all of a sudden you see Jay and Seth come out and then stand in front of the ring to kind of like protect Cody. And like Roman just like, "Oh, like, I can't believe you would do that." And then there's just a big epic stare down.
So,
and then they go off air.
Leading off the heels of SmackDown, we go into Raw, and we open up and Cody comes right out. Cuts his normal, I would say, classic Cody babyface promo.
And I kind of feel like he was a little like tipping or behind the curtain, because he's like, "Oh, this is like the weird period before Mania. Like, do you beat people up? Do you don't beat people up?" And he's like, "Oh, it's weird." And then he went in how he like paid, someone asked to be in for Cody to be in their wedding. He paid for a bachelor party, and he paid for like little.
Yeah, he ran down how much of a good guy he was, and it really kind of annoyed me.
Well, again, he's the blonde blood baby face, and he was like, "I act like the champ, I dress like the champ, because the champ is never here."
Right.
And then he all like tells everyone like, point at the WrestleMania sign. So his back is turned to the ramp, and then the Rock music hits. And then the Rock comes down. So this is kind of, I believe it's the first time it's just Cody, Seth alone in the ring post the Vegas conference thing.
Which just pause right there. I have to say, and I have to give Bleacher Report credit, because the writer for Bleacher Report wrote this, so I'm not going to discuss it, but it put the seed in my head. The Rock's entrance, it's newer. It seems like it's just so perfect. It's just his the way he comes out, and I don't know if he plans it. I mean, they probably do a run through, but like it just looks so, with all the electricity and everything, and I think they had a little issue with like the spotlight at one point, but just the way it shines and everything, it just, every time he comes out, you just know it's a megastar.
The Brahma Bull's eyes are red now because he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
So basically he comes out and they're standing in the ring, and basically the crowd's like, holy shit, just like what's like, just, and they stood there where it felt like forever, just like staring at each other. And then what Nick has on screen, he just leans in and whispers,
"Sweet nothings."
Sweet little baby nothings.
He was so excited.
And then
Cody got aroused.
I think we all did. But
well, that one woman did at the Rock concert. He made note of it.
Like whatever, 2-3 Fridays ago, a woman flashed him, and he's like, "I love you too." But
yes. So he whispers in, and he oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna pass. So they had the whisper, and then they leave, and then what happens is, let me scroll down my notes. So then Jay is going to have a match with Shinsuke Nakamura. And then before Jay goes to the ring, Seth goes to him like, "Me and Cody have your back. Don't worry about it." So he has the match with Shin. And of course, the bloodline comes down to interrupt. And then Seth and Cody come down to even the odds. And then Drew McIntyre comes down and starts beating up Seth. So Seth and Drew are off. And then magically they're like, oh yeah, we're doing a match. So Jay and Shin finish the match. And then basically Cody's beating up Jimmy and they go like off the ramp or whatever. And then they cut to Cody and Jimmy still fighting. And then here comes The Rock to interfere or whatever. To start beating him up and beats the
crap out of Cody. So backtracking just a little bit. So The Rock goes and whispers something into Cody's ear. Now, when I first saw this, I had to play it back a couple times, and I finally caught what he said. Because at first, I thought it's meant that you're not supposed to know what he's saying, but I picked it up pretty easily after the second or third time of watching it. So he leans in and he says, tonight, I'm going to make you bleed. So at first, I thought he was saying, I thought he was just going to be some sort of like another layer to the whole double agent storyline of like wink, wink, like something's going on, you know, and everything. Because he also, you know, Cody also in the promo does the Bullet Club kiss a little bit and saying he has friends. So I'm hoping maybe there's some sort of twist. I'm hoping maybe Dustin shows up.
I would love Dustin to come out.
I think he is. I really would think that would be a great surprise. But yeah, because he's going to be at WrestleMania this weekend, and they want to capitalize on all the social media momentum because Tony Khan loves the attention.
He does the two sweet kisses it and then guns up. But he does that a lot. He did it when he won both Royal Rumbles. That's because he says him and the Bucks are still biffles, and that's still like a part of him. But whatever. But
so he ends up just like you said, beating the ever loving.
Well, do you want to?
No, go ahead. Ever loving hell out of Cody. Sorry.
And he hits him with the garbage cans, and then and this is where it gets like put your tinfoil hats on, kids. So then we finally go out. He gets them outside, and he like weirdly opens the door, and it's the back of Cody's bus, which is touting his vodka, whatever it's called, something with a W, I don't remember. And then he's like throwing him into the bus and doing this, and he's like, he said, look at him so many times, it's driving me insane. But then and then I think it was great of him because he would like throw Cody, and Cody's like obviously gigging at himself or cutting himself, and he like grabbed the camera. He's like, look at me, look at your boy, Mama Rhodes.
Mama Rhodes, I'm gonna show you something, Mama Rhodes.
And then he took off the belt that said like Mama Rhodes on it. He's like, your big boy's blood's gonna be on this. And then they cut back to, well, I guess it was before, but they cut to Cody and Cody's bleeding. And then I feel like this is like such your PG era that like I feel like bleeding, like them having him bleed, and I think Cody loves to.
And he cursed. He was like, you don't F with the boss, like
fuck with the final boss, and it was just like it just felt so attitude era, so real, and I think Cody is kind of that newer the current generation guy that you can trust to blade himself correctly or do the thing correctly and sell it correctly. I think this means so much. Again, like I love AEW and I love Jon Moxley, but it's like every 30 seconds you sneeze on Jon Moxley and he's bleeding. Like this felt so real because they don't do it too much. So then like when Nick he smears the blood, he's like, Mama Rose, I'm gonna give this to you, and just continue to like just beat him up. And then apparently I read today that like even when they cut like, okay, we're off air, and like Rock was just kind of like F you, like, and still beat him up for another couple of minutes.
Yeah. So
like Cody sold it, Rock sold it. I think it was
great. So it begs the question now, because a month ago we asked,
like, I didn't want to see this.
Rock
a month ago
versus Roman or Cody versus Roman. Now it's changed, and the story has now gone to. And Nikki begged this question to me earlier today.
This morning.
Am I more interested in Rock versus Cody in a one-on-one match, or Cody or Roman versus Cody too? Honestly, I mean, I love The Rock, so I would love to see Rock. And I talked about this on previous episodes of the show. Like Cody getting a win over The Rock could put him into a whole other tier of megastar level. Yeah. So I would absolutely love to see it. I don't know. What about you, Nikki?
I don't know, because again, I was very like post
Sorry. Ed Moxley's bleeding somewhere. Right? He probably is.
And again, I love Moxley. I really, if you listen to this and you know me, you know I love Mox. But it's just like, just all the time. Like I do, and it's weird because I was listening to another podcast about it. It's like it's weird to say like I like bleeding in wrestling, but it has to be done right and it has to be done sparingly when it makes an impact. And this 100% made an impact. And I'm like watching the promo off on Friday. And then going to this, I'm like, well, I want Cody to give the receipt back to The Rock. Like, I want to see that match. And you're bringing in Mom. And, like, and it's weird because he always calls his mom Michelle Rubio. And he keeps saying Mama Rhodes. So it's, like, feels weird. But it's just, like, I don't know. I feel like now I just want to see Cody beat the shit out of The Rock. And, like, Roman, that's the thing. I feel like Roman feels like such an afterthought. Yeah. And I thought at the press conference, like, Seth kind of felt like the afterthought, but now out of the four of them, like Roman's nowhere for me.
No, it's crazy to think of. At least Lisa's chiming in on this. It really sounded like Dwayne Simone heritage came out when he talked, like he had the Simone accent come out, and it just felt scary a little.
Yeah, like he's channeling that. I don't know. I never seen Moana, but I know that's like the thing. But whatever, and that's the end of the room promo. It's like, oh. I have to say you're welcome. And I was like, what is that? And everyone's like, oh, that's what his line from Moana. And I was like, oh, that's creepy.
For the record, in our household now, Nicole is known as the final boss.
Oh, yeah. Surprise.
Really, actually, it's probably Bailey. It's probably Bailey.
She's a monster that thing. But anyways, so again, after smearing the blood, after making him bleed, you're calling out my mother. Like, I'd rather see Cody beat Rock than... whatever with Roman. Like, Roman's been... And I think Rock is outshined. And I'm honestly, if I was Roman, I would maybe feel better about it not being them, because, like, Rock would blow them out of the water at this point. Yeah. Unless he was, like, Rock was really going to be going in as a good guy. But honestly, even he's not my favorite person, but in the Attitude Era, better as a heel.
So we want to know from all you, would you want to see, just if that were on the table, it's not. Well, maybe it is. Who knows? They change plans like underwear. It seems like lately. So, would you want to see Rock? If both matches were on the table, what would you want to see more? We want to hear from you. Let us know.
Or does Cody win at Mania, and that's the SummerSlam match?
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, if you had gun to your head, you have to have one or the other. What would you rather say? Knowing right now to date, and I'm including everything from the storyline with Cody versus Roman. And everything with Rock and Cody from this point on, what would you want to see? And let us know. Eventually I'm going to get polls up into this chat and onto the show, and we'll start doing polls, but at times. But moving on, Raw was very action-packed.
Raw was so good, and I love when wrestling is good, and I feel like both shows are just in like a sweet spot right now. But Raw was crazy, and then we go to the other big, huge match.
For the belt.
For the other belt,
the
Seth.
Men's belt.
Drew. And then, of course, they're in Chicago. So Punk's got to come out. And the promo off between Punk, Drew, and Seth, they said it was one of the highest rated segment in a while. And this was like, I always say chef's kiss so much on this, but I'm like, motherfucking chef's kiss to this promo. And I also have notes on this. Let me scroll back up.
The three of them were fantastic. And honestly, just quick thoughts from me. The one who came out the best still looks like Drew. And all three of them, I still think it's so Punk's hometown. Seth Rollins is constantly over. He cuts great promo after great promo. But the only person on Monday night and the three of them that came out looking like gold, even though he got stomped to hell, to me, was McIntyre. Yeah.
So, of course, again, we're in Chicago, so CM Punk has to come out. And this incredible open promo, my arm doesn't work, but my mouth does ask April. And I'm like, oh, girl, coming hot. Sorry, I love that line. I love his wife, AJ. I love that. And then he talks about how, Roman was on a Pat McAfee show talking crap. He was like, was not saying anything. Like, The Rock hasn't said anything because he did the other promo. He's like, your arms are too short to box with God. And I'm like, oh, bringing that back. And then
that is a great line. That is such a great line.
Like, your arms are too short to box with God. I was like, oh, girl.
It says Punk is a big fan of pie. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, Ed, thank you. So then he calls out Drew. Drew comes out. He calls him a troll in a dress. And Drew's like, oh, you can get canceled for that. And then he shows he has the one shirt, like the Savior of Mating on it. It has like the check marks on the back. And they took off the other shirt, which is him trolling at like a grave of the CM Punk grave thing. And then he was like, you use my name to sell merch.
Yeah, I never had to put someone else's name on my shirt.
Yeah.
To sell merch, which I think he used the line before was it AEW that he recently used that line? Or is he? I've heard him say that before. And I feel like it was an AEW.
Was it an? Oh, it was at the photo of MJF as a kid.
Yeah, I think it was the MJF feud. Yeah, where MJF started doing that, and he basically called out an MJF on it.
Yeah, but then Drew came back, and I thought this was such a fun line too. There's so many lines in this. He was like, "You don't do drugs, you don't drink, but you're always in rehab." And I was like, "Ah."
Yeah, he's been spot on. He's been spot on, and like even going. So on Monday before the show, he went to Mindy's Bakery, and that was just hysterical because he goes and of course, and I don't know if he planned it or not, but whether he did or not, it was just brilliant because he goes and he's like, of course it's closed and I'm friggin' starving, and he's like, I'll just go get like a muffin or eat healthy or you get something else, besides this. So it's just everything he's doing is just gold.
We did talk about it the other week when he was like working out in Crimea River. He played Crimea River in the background. So at this point, Drew sits cross-legged on the announce desk like CM Punk did when he did the pipe bomb. And then he's like, don't look up my skirt, you perv, which was also amazing. And then he was like, oh, I'm the chosen one. And Punk's like, by who? Tell me who. But he said, what moral something. Like Punk said something back. He was like, oh, who chose you? And then Drew kind of was like, stirred away from that one and was basically said that Punk should be on commentary for the Seth Drew match.
So supposedly the reports that are coming out are that they basically just gave them an old school Attitude Era type, just like here's the nuts and not the nuts and bolts, but basics framework of what. Yeah,
there wasn't scripted. It was basically the bullet points that they had to make and basically get to CM Punk being the special guest announce person for the match. So then, of course, Seth comes out, and then he's like, "Oh, what do you want to see Seth do?" And then he's like, "Oh, I should." Then they started chanting, so he's like, "Oh, I'll take the thing of the crowd," and the crowd starts chanting "referee." And then Seth was like, "Oh, what's his counting arm?" So then Seth Punk flattens himself on the mat and does the count 1, 2, 3. And you can see Seth was like, oh, he got me. And he was like, well, I can't be the referee because I can't be impartial with these two dipshits. And then Drew, who's now sitting in between Cole and Pat, and he's like, PG, brother.
Yeah, they just kept going back and forth. And it's interesting. So now, basically, the agreement was that Punk was now going to be the announcer, the third announcer for the match.
So,
okay.
Well, I'm just saying how he gets to that. He was like, I'm going to do something that Drew can't do, Seth can't do, Seth's wife can't do. I'm going to finally make you two interesting. And then Punk music hits. And then Drew's like, nah, like, you're not in this match. You're not ending the segment with your music. And Drew's like, cut the music. And then...
McIntyre, you mean, not Punk. McIntyre came out and said, you're not in the segment.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say Punk?
Yeah.
Well, so I'm sorry, guys. So he cut off Punk's music. He's like, you're not in this match. You don't get to end this. And then he gets in the...
Oh, yeah. McIntyre said that. Yes, correct.
Sorry. McIntyre yells at Punk. You're not in this match. Your music doesn't end this. Then he gets into the ring and then eats a super kick and a stomp. Seth music.
Right. So, begs the question, topic for this week. Will CM Punk get involved physically at WrestleMania 4? He's going to be on the announce team. So, he's not the referee, which again, he can count, but he can't be impartial. Does CM Punk get physically involved in the world title match at WrestleMania 40? We want to hear from you. What do you all think? Let us know. Me personally, I still feel like there's going to be some sort of angle where after like midway through the match, a ref gets knocked down and all of a sudden Punk just reveals, oh, I magically have a referee shirt on, and he somehow counts it. Now, I think the question is though, like, I still think McIntyre's going over. So I just don't know how that would look. But
like, I wouldn't, again, like how I originally, what I said with the Rock involved in the Cody Roman match. He can get involved and do a thing, but I don't want the thing that he does to immediately go into the pin and then the person wins because Punk got involved.
That's fair.
Like, again, I really just want clean finishes, which I know, hello wrestling, but if it's for the belts, and these people are going on to be champions, like Drew needs to win clean, Cody needs to win clean. But that's my opinion. I could be wrong.
Just going through some of these comments here. But yeah, again, one way or another. Let's see. Lisa got a nice one way or another. Punk's going to get physically involved. Low blow or someone maybe goes to GTS and shows his arm back. Fine. I still think he's out for a few months, Lisa. I don't know.
I think it's whoever, whether it's Drew or Seth, whoever wins this match. I think Punk will fight them at SummerSlam. I don't think he's going to be cleared beforehand. And I think that's the other thing, like how physical, like he threw himself on the mat to do it 1, 2, 3, but I don't know if he's medically cleared to be taking bumps. Like all for Corey Graves, all this stuff, like he had a lot of concussions and that's why he retired and went to commentary. He was like on the list for a very long time, a person like you cannot touch him. So I don't know if he's just like, he can be in the ring and do a thing, but to get physically, I don't know. And I don't know if we'll have to watch the sheets to see how.
Yeah, I don't think Punk could lift somebody up.
Yeah, I don't
to do it. I mean, I think more likely, maybe
like
he hits him with some, but like counting the pin. It'd be interesting. He's gonna. I feel like there's something he's gonna.
Than him doing that, like I don't know.
There'll be an altercation. He'll be or at least they'll stand up next to each other.
Or someone it's such a typical thing. You'll get the wrestler will throw them into a thing, or like Punk is like jaw jacking with Drew, and then like. Drew will move out of the way and like Seth hits Punk or like one of those things, and it's like someone hits him inadvertently at commentary.
So moving on, those were the two major, at least world title picture events of the last week for us, at least in our minds. But for me, there's another group we haven't really talked about them at all, and it's the Judgment Day. And the Judgment Day has been doing a lot. They've been running roughshod on Raw for the last, year and change. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows about Rhea Ripley and how dominant she's been as the women's champion, and probably you could argue the most dominant female wrestler in the last 2 years, 2-3 years. Her and Bianca probably are the top two, and Becky obviously is up there as well. But in terms of winning titles and matches and things like that, probably the most dominant. But right now you have them as World Tag Team Champions. You have Damian Priest as Senior Money in the Bank, which he's got to cash it in the next 2 months. What's June? June?
Was it June or July?
I think Money in the Bank's June. So what do we? We're in March, so 3, 4, 5. Yeah, like the next 3 months, he's got to cash in Money in the Bank. Mm-hmm. They have a 6-pack challenge to defend the World Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. Rhea's defending her women's title at WrestleMania 40 against Becky Lynch, which is no surefire win for her versus other opponents that may not have as much momentum and name value for that matter. So the last couple of weeks, Judgment Day, I mean, they've been beating up R-Truth a lot and The Miz and stuff like that, and I get it, but it's R-Truth, who's a comedy act, let's be honest. And the last couple of weeks, the foil has been Ricochet. Ricochet has been beating pretty much everyone in Judgment Day, aside from Damian Priest and Finn. But really, he's been beating up on McDonough and Dom, Dirty Dom. So we're at the point where going into WrestleMania with all the matches that are coming up, I asked the question: has the Judgment Day peaked? Because a six-pack challenge at WrestleMania for the World Tag Team titles. Not the odds aren't in their favor. You have Damian Priest, who's I know he's still Money in the Bank winner, but who knows when he's going to cash that in. And I feel like when he does cash that in, it may not be with Judgment Day, because you do not necessarily need or want. WWE is always about making single stars, not necessarily factions. So they might want him, and probably would want Damian Priest on his own. And now you're seeing the losses between McDonough and Dom, and they're hinting at maybe kicking McDonough out of the group in some ways because of his performance. So I'm curious to see, is this the end of the Judgment Day? Rhea's a star on her own, doesn't need Judgment Day to do anything, to get anywhere. So, is this the end? Nikki, do you think this is the end?
Oh, I feel like we've been teasing this for forever. So I feel like going back almost gonna be a year now. Apparently backstage, WWE was so impressed with Damian Priest carrying Bad Bunny through that street fight in Puerto Rico at Backlash, which would be May, because it was the pay-per-view after Mania. So that's basically why he got the briefcase. And there was always rumors that, I think that Judgment Day is going to run his course, and then that would be Priest turning face. I don't know what would happen with
the Money in the Bank.
Yeah, that he would cash in Money in the Bank as a face, which also doesn't make any sense. I don't know. At this point, you're not cashing in on Cody. You're not going to
I don't like Priest
on Drew
as a face at all. I'm not a really big Damian Priest fan to begin with. I like him better as a heel, but I don't know that he's even right now main eventer.
You were fun and dominant, and then it's just I feel like it's run its course. I'm kind of over Priest and them having the double belts. I don't know if there's some way we're gonna split them up or.
Yeah, that's annoying too. That's pretty.
Whatever. JD McDonough has been in and out, or is he in? Is he not in with them this whole time? And Dom showed up on SmackDown, getting back in it with his father and Santos. And again, like you said, Rhea doesn't need them. I don't know. I think I think they're losing the belts at Mania for sure. I don't think they're coming out of that ladder match with the belts.
So let's see. Lisa, sorry, I'm reading some. Lisa's got another comment.
I can't see the comment.
I know. I'm driving, listening, doing a lot of things here. So. As your virtual bartender. So Lisa says, gosh, I hope so. I feel like Judgment Day is weighing each competitor down. Rhea needs to be on her own. Priest needs to be on his own. Dom may not be ready for this. Dom, honestly, Lisa, I think Dom might be the only one who out of the four of them, well, Balor, but who really needs to be on. He gets the most heat, the most reaction aside from Rhea. But
you can keep him with Rhea, or now that whatever happened on SmackDown that he's with his dad or he's with Santos against his dad. He came out in the mask, I think Dom's gonna be fine. Everyone hates him. You can keep him with Rhea or not, but
it'll be interesting. I
don't think Priest, Finn, or JD will have anything if they break up.
Well, what's interesting about just to stay on the Dom thing for a point, on last week on SmackDown we didn't really talk about this, but he again, I guess kind of rehashed, which I don't think will ever end, the feud with his father with Ray and mess with him again. So, and helped out Santos Escobar. So not that, again, and kind of to Lisa, to your point, if you don't feel like you said that he could be on his own yet. I mean, he could go into that whole Legado del Fantasma faction and that whole storyline.
He's not a part of the faction, but they both hate Rey Mysterio.
Right. And if Judgment Day breaks up, you could still funnel him in there.
Yeah, I feel like Rhea and Dom will be fine. The other ones, I'm really not sure.
Well, Finn is better with a stable, always has been with his career, especially starting Bullet Club.
The most famous one.
So maybe, and with Gallows and Anderson doing jack shit and going down to NXT now to try and challenge for the
That's
NXT.
Also a weird thing. They lost the match to, I have it in my notes.
Braun Breaker.
No. Well, no, they're doing a tournament in NXT and they won their match. And they're doing a tournament on SmackDown to be in the WrestleMania match. The Grayson Waller and Theory. So they lost. They lost to Waller and Theory on SmackDown, but then went to NXT and won a match. So it's
Well, yeah, that's I mean, well, honestly, it makes sense because
put Fowler back down in NXT. Like, remember he had that whole resurgence for a little bit. Then that's why he got.
Well, yeah, the idea,
and that's why he was doing the thing with Edge and how he got in the Judgment Day.
The idea behind NXT should be the minor leagues to WWE. So, in theory, in baseball, hockey, you have the same idea, right? And everything correlates. WWE really mimics the professional sports because it's sports entertainment, right? With that idea. So, if you send down someone who's on the main roster, it's like sending a starting pitcher, in my opinion, down to AAA. They should be able to be dominant in NXT, or at least get a few more wins, right? They have the experience. You're talking a veteran versus a rookie, so you should be able to at least get back on track. But I think I get why they do. It's weird. It's a weird thing though. Like once I think you're in purgatory. If they sent you back down there, unless you're like Balor's a different story and something. But if you're back down there for a long period of time, you're kind of SOL. Maybe it's a KOD for your your career in some ways. But moving on, so we like to cover all types of wrestling here, and basically the big two are what we focus on. So we're going to move into Wednesday and just kind of some blanket takeaways on AEW this week. So as always, ladies first. But Nikki, I'm sure she's got a laundry list of notes.
I literally.
And just before Nikki goes on her diatribe about everything AEW, make sure, I know we've got a lot of listeners in right now, so make sure if you're new here, make sure you subscribe, comment below. The phone lines are open. We're going to open those up very shortly. So feel free to call in. There's a call-in link pinned it's in the chat. It's actually on the link. So if you want to call in and express your opinions, tell us you like what we say, you hate what we say, you want to talk about old school wrestling, new school wrestling, we talk about it all. But anyway, go ahead, Nikki. AEW.
I do want to clear up some controversy from last week's show. I'm wearing my Copeland shirt because his name is Adam Copeland.
Oh, see.
But
go ahead.
I was going to say, but I digress because we haven't said that yet. But Nick is wearing the head of the table shirt.
Yes.
You know, he's the head of the table, but
for wishful thinking for later this evening.
Boss.
Nobody? That might be the alcohol.
Yeah. So, AEW, I thought this match was so crazy. I said that to you maybe like 100 times when we were watching this. It opened with Shibata Ospreay. A weekly TV opened with this match that was a pay-per-view. Their first match was like 7 years ago. I was like, if this is still New Japan, this is a pay-per-view match. Like, how is this open? It blew my mind how this was opening Dynamite. But of course, with Shibata and Ospreay, chef's kiss of a match. Like the chops, the Germans. Shibata kicked out of the Os Cutter at 1, and he was just like begging for him to hit him. And then eventually, obviously, Ospreay won because he's going into the match with Danielson at Dynasty, which is 2 weeks after Mania.
Can we first say something about how I always tell Nikki this, and maybe it's insane, but every time I hear his name, I think about bread. Shibata.
Oh, Shibata. I'm like,
bread.
Get out of here.
So it's dinner time. I'm a little hungry.
And I think that's the other. We didn't talk about the collision match a couple weeks ago. That was Shibata Daniels. It was like 2 people that were like told they weren't going to wrestle again, and here they are having like a banger of a flippin' match. And to see Shibata Ospreay like 7 years later after their match, and it was just, to me, it was fun. And of course, at the end of the hug, and that leads into the video package of Bryan Danielson. His name is Adam Copeland.
Well, that match in general was phenomenal. I mean, Ospreay is just, and I thought it was weird because like looking back on it, and we're going to talk later about like we're adding some new segments about match of the week and things like that. And this was a contender, but I feel like I'm so desensitized because I love Will Ospreay. Every match he has is just a B+. It's level. It's so good. Every single one. So it's like, even this one, I was like, it's good. And I'm like, is it? And as I was telling Nikki this before the show, I was like, can I make the best match of the week? It probably should be like every week I could probably nominate it.
Yeah. Just the Germans. There's so many Germans. I know. Again, a fun match. If you have the time, watch it. Then it goes into the Young Bucks do a promo. They're facing Private Party. The last time they faced Private Party, they lost. It was the original first tag team tournament to crown the tag team champions. A lot of callbacks to the first match in this match.
Started off like a squash. I thought it was gonna be a squash.
I know,
like
we were back too. But everyone came back. I believe Nicholas hit it on Mark Quinn, the Falcon Arrow off the barricade. It was on a barricade. And then I was like, oh, that, because the steps were right there. And I was like, oh, that looked gnarly. But then, of course, like the referee was distracted. There was a low blow. There's a belt shot. There's all the things. But basically, obviously, they went with the EVP trigger.
Yeah, they renamed it.
Yeah. So, of course, they won.
And they had the whole match. They had Okada in the background.
Yeah,
just kind of sitting there. Which, again, I know they're trying to build him up. From the little bit that I've heard of him, it seems like he speaks almost perfect English. Let him be the star. Like, I don't know. I just think that, and maybe they're taking their time with him, but
well, you gotta see when
with the money investment, you really have to make him a mega star.
It's the when and if Kenny gets healthy, and apparently Meltzer said on the Observer that they think he's probably gonna need to get surgery done, and like obviously name redacted person bounced back from his diverticulitis. Apparently Kenny's is more severe, so he's probably gonna get parts of his intestines and colon taken out, but we'll see. But it feels weird for them to be together, and like Kenny's not with like being the baby face against that. And also to go back in my notes, I made such a big deal of this at the promo. Renee was interviewing the Bucks, and they were like, Renee, you're so great. You just gotta smile more. And I lost my shit on Nick. And I was like, oh, it's so great. Like, how dare. And I was like, oh, they're
just smile more.
They're these weird, shitty, name redacted Vince people. And I was just like, oh, he's like, you gotta smile. Just like as a woman, and hearing that at a country when I worked at the country club, I was just like, oh, it hit me, and I was like, oh, they're being like the worst shit heels. So like, I'm supposed to have this reaction, and that's what they want.
I don't know. It bores me. Their EVP act is stupid to me, but it is what it is. So for me, takeaways again, Ospreay, the star. I worry with AEW about how much Tony is just making it rain on everybody and that WCW effect. But, again, Ospreay, you can see his entrance, just full-fledged star. And, again, I'm a bigger WWE fan than AEW, but I like them both. WWE missed the boat. He is 110% the next AJ Styles and main event talent. And I think even New Japan, I said this before, that New Japan waited too long to make him a main event tier wrestler. Like his matches with Ricochet put him on the map. Those years after, he should have been right in contention, because once you have that kind of exposure, you really need to be front and center.
I think the rumor on the sheets was that like Triple H didn't realize that he can cut a promo. He's like, oh, he's the flippy guy, and then you see him on AEW killing it, bruv. Like he's cutting his promos, and he just like the crowd is on like every single word he's saying. Like he's so over.
He's very energetic and passionate when he talks on the mic, which is he's not like super like creative with his words, but he's passionate.
Like, I got my pugs, and I got my cats, and I got my missus, and I'm just like, but like I don't know. I think
the other thing for me is, and you've talked about this, so I got to give Nikki credit for a while on the success of what he's done so far. Swerve has just been on a whole of them. I thought he had the charisma and was going to be someone who is going to, again, just cut great promos. But I didn't realize how talented he was in the ring. He honestly, and maybe he's almost athletically on the level of Kofi Kingston. The way he jumps and in his athleticism, I feel like he almost not the same. He's not jumping like doing 20 feet, but he has a tremendous amount of athleticism that in WWE maybe he didn't get the show, and now. And even in his early days in AEW, I felt like he wasn't being able to display that to anybody. And now he's at the point where you're seeing it. And He's in the main event picture. He's doing great, and like he's absolutely stood out as a main event talent, and he's taking this opportunity where, to be honest, we talk about the loaded roster that AEW has, and he's taking his opportunity at the top of the card and making the most of it. So good for him.
Yeah, I very much like, and again, he was in NXT and then like so briefly on SmackDown. But him, I knew he can wrestle, like I knew that, but with him coming to AEW and actually finally getting to have a personality and to talk, and Prince Nana doing his whole thing. But I think he comes out, like, to me, he feels like such a star in AEW. And then, like, when Cal's coming out last weekend, he's like, you gotta fight Takeshita. And he's like, whatever, I'll fight Takeshita, then I'm going after Joe. And then, like, him and Takeshita had a fun match. And I'm just like, does he take the belt off Joe already? Does something need to happen? And I was like, is this where I want something dirty in my wrestling? Because it's like, I think it's too early to take the belt off Joe, but I so want Swerve to get it. I don't know. I think Swerve's a star. I think he will be the first African-American AEW champion, which I think would be fantastic. I think he definitely deserves that. I don't know. I'm so captivated. Like, I really don't know what it was. Maybe getting the opportunity, maybe not being so scripted, but like literally in NXT could not care. And then AEW, like I cannot take my eyes off him. I think he's a star.
I think he has the ability for sure. And if he has the right momentum, I'm a big momentum guy. I'm like, you have to have the right momentum to be champion. And I think anyone with the right momentum can be a champion. Like Sami Zayn last year could have been a champion with all the momentum he had. He had the Daniel Bryan momentum, right? So I think he do it. My problem is that storyline wise, I'm still annoyed that this whole storyline should be centered around the Devil storyline, or the championship, should be centered around the Devil storyline, which is Adam Cole screwed over MJF. Where's MJF? He just went away, right? Like, and now Joe won the belt because Adam Cole essentially screwed over MJF. Like, he didn't hand him the ring, right? So, like, now we're gonna keep moving this along. I get it. And maybe it could be its own match and its own main event match, but the belt, it was centered around he was screwed over out of the title. I don't like the whole aspect of just moving that along, because that was what it was all about, getting the title. And Adam Cole even said it. His whole purpose was to basically get the title. And now he's trying to send Wardlow to get the title, who failed. But regardless, yeah, the whole point.
I have to sort of disagree with you. I think.
Oh, please.
Poor Wardlow. I love Wardlow. He deserves more than he's getting. But at this point, the Devil, I don't think the Devil review was very great. I think Adam Cole should have jumped off that ramp and screwed everything over. I think also...
well, talk about Darby Allin jumping off things and hurting themselves.
That was, yeah. But MJF is... apparently banged up, and something, I don't know if it's the shoulder that they're trying to go back and forth if he needs surgery, doesn't need surgery. They're hoping he's young enough and can just rehab it, but there's apparently a rumor that he might need to get the surgery. But again, it's like Adam Cole can't wrestle, MJF can't wrestle, then we need to move away from this. And I think the match between Joe, Swerve, and Adam Page was fantastic. I think the Swerve Page trilogy really put Swerve on the map as well. And honestly, if he does take the belt off Joe at Dynasty, I'd be okay with that. But I think at this point, MJF's hurt, Adam Cole's hurt. It's just let's move on then. Then let's get Swerve in and let's move on.
Well, we got a bunch of listeners in. What do you all think? Do you want MJF to come back and be in the title picture? Do you want Adam Cole? Do you want that whole storyline to be part of the picture? Or do you want Swerve, Joe, and just move on and maybe Swerve's the next champion and carries it, and we have a fighting champion, as Nikki likes to say, or as we all like to say, right? We want to hear from you. Phone lines are open. Feel free to call in. We're going to take some calls pretty soon. So again, let us know. Moving on. So we have one last segment before we get into the callers here.
I'll be quick
for this next segment.
Yeah, if you want.
So we thought it'd be fun. Yesterday and today was opening day for baseball. So being a Mets fan, my season ends always on opening day, probably a couple innings in, or 9 innings in, pretty much. So I got used to hearing 3 up, 3 down. So in honor of baseball season, we're doing our own 3 up, 3 down for this week. So as always, ladies first.
I feel like
Nikki, who is one of your ups?
Blew my load a little early, guys. My first one was Swerve. Again, I think I just said everything I needed to say about Swerve. I think he's a star. I think he can cut a great promo. His matches are great. Watch him and Takeshita. I think, and then it's like, again, him and, I think really put him on the map with him and Hangman. And I think it's maybe too early to take it off Joe, but again, I would not be mad if they took it off Joe and he just like carried it. And that's the thing. I think once you put it on Swerve, he needs to hold it for a while. But that was my first one, so I was quick on that one. So I just blabbered on about him 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
So you, Baba.
So mine, I will go with, obviously, and we kind of touched on this already, Drew McIntyre. I know he was down. He was put down and ended up on the ground on Monday night. But promo after promo, week after week, whether it's social media, in the matches, he just gets over every time. And he's just looking more and more like gold. So he's my first thumb up. My second one, we just touched on it with AEW. Will Ospreay, another phenomenal match. He's had 2 great matches to start. He's had 2 great promos. He has kicked off his AEW career the way that I think he need to. And if like that, I would have expected them to do with Okada. So I think he's on a completely different, I mean, he's a wrestler on a completely different level, but he is just absolutely killing it. And once they eventually get him into the main event picture, I think they're really going to get their money's worth out of Will Ospreay. Who's your number 2 star up or up?
I really didn't do mine in order, but I'm going to give a shout out to Candice LeRae. I like my women's wrestling. She's turning heel, and I'm into it. It was a little weird when she like yelled at what's her face about her dead
the worm
or dead.
Oh my gosh, Maxine Dupree.
Why am I so bad with names all of a sudden? But the match she had with Nia Jax was apparently cut because the promo of Drew, Seth, and Punk went too long. But she pretended she hurt herself, and then she did the roll up and she put her boots on the rope, and like Indy walked off, and I was like, I think Candice is a fantastic wrestler, and I think she had so much like personality in NXT and when they were in the way, and then when she came up to me, it's like nothing, and I was like, now like it's something to finally sink her teeth into, and I'm liking the heel thing. I would think maybe her and Indy will have a match or like a blow off, but it's like something different, like from going from no personality and just like, and then like this weird heel turn. Like I'd rather see it than having her have no personality at all, because I know it's there.
Well, if it gets her more TV time, right? And she's a talented wrestler that needs an opportunity. More power to it.
I'm excited to see where this goes. And I think the eventual heel turn on Indy will happen, because like Indy walked away that she cheated, and it's been discussed this whole time. But like personality, get it, Candice.
Who is your third?
My third, can I get in the chat a yes boy? Pretty Deadly. The segment that they had last week, and I'm excited at 8 to go upstairs and watch that match. So KO was talking to Aldis, and then the Pretty Deadly come in and basically went to KO, was like, oh, what do you know about tag team wrestling? And he's like, well, I won the tag belts last year. And they're like, oh, living in the past. And KO was like, oh, I'll challenge you to a tag match. And they're like, you don't have any friends. And he like yells off camera like, hey, do you want to be tag team partners with me? And then Randy Orton comes in frame, and Elton Prince like throws himself on Kit Wilson. I was like, ah! Just like, oh my god, I could not stop laughing. I probably rewatched the segment like 100 times.
They're the new, what are they called? Fandango and Breeze. What are they called? Breezango. Yeah, they're the new Breezango. 100%. Like they do a lot of funny skits.
He was just like, oh my god, and then Randy Orton was like, "Oh, I like your coat. My dad wore that coat in the '80s." And then he was like, "Oh, you want to be tag partners with me?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Oh, we need to play like video games with my boss or whatever," and walks off. And then KO basically like said that he's like, "Oh, last time I was in this building, I punched 2 people at once," and like walked off. And Aldous was like, "Maybe don't stand next to each other." And then KO comes and punches them both in the face, and they sold it so wonderful. And they had the other promo a couple weeks ago now when like they had the rivalry with Peter Dune and Tyler Bate. And then like he broke all his fingers and he had like bandages on his fingers, and like they had like a cartoon of like Queen Elizabeth come down and it's like, "Oh, Lizzie," and it's just like they're so fun and they're so funny that I love to see them coming back, because I think they debuted and like dipped a little bit, and I want them on the upswing.
Yeah, well, I think
because who doesn't love a yes boy?
The only thing is the issue with them is going to be, are they more of a comedy act that's going to take them a while to get over? But we'll see.
But as long as they're having those little skits backstage, I'm good. Sorry.
So, moving on. So, my third, just this week, and well, this week kind of continues the momentum. Ricochet had a phenomenal match. He's been putting on banger after banger, week after week. He's been feuding with the Judgment Day. He's been getting over. He's coming as the foil. I'm hoping. There's been times in the past where Triple H has given him good booking and some momentum. I'm hoping that this is the turn for him. So he's my 3-ups. That match was phenomenal. Honestly, we'll talk about this later, and I'll probably bleed in. That was my match of the week. Ricochet, JD McDonough, to a lot of high spots, right? Dom was in it. You got Dom out of the match. I haven't seen a shooting star crossbody is what it was to finish a match. I thought that was awesome on a standing opponent, and that's why just that alone, you just never see that. And it was two great wrestlers, similar size, that it takes unique people to kind of pull it off at times. So that was why he was my third up for this week. So moving on to downs. For me, those were a lot easier to do. I think Nikki and I are probably going to be in agreement on this. I don't know if you made your list, but Roman Reigns, I know you had a showdown with Cody Rhodes. I still don't know what the hell you're doing, other than, like, I know you're battling him, but everyone else is fighting. Roman Reigns hasn't thrown a punch, I feel like. It's been Solo. It's been Jimmy. It's been everybody else. I'm waiting to see Paul Heyman throw a punch before Roman Reigns. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to be at his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Paul Heyman, is just going to come out and just give a right hand to Cody Rhodes. He's going to have to fight through everybody. But also, I could see Brandy Rhodes coming out and beating the hell out of Paul Heyman. That would be great at WrestleMania.
Bitch, who told you it was open mic night? Best Brandy Rhodes thing ever.
So that's my first down. I'll run through my 3 and then I'll let you go through your 3 on this time. So number 2 for me has to be Hook. And that's not because I don't like Hook. It's because I do like Hook, because I think Hook is another one of these. To be honest, I think he's more of a pillar than some of the 4 pillars that have been called that. Like, definitely more than Jungle Boy, for sure. And in terms of getting a reaction. But Hook gets it down for me because Chris Jericho is going to be his manager, and now Hook's talking more. It's just the mystique of him being a badass fighter and everything else. Like, I think having a mouthpiece, would be good for him, but not Chris Jericho. I'm over Chris Jericho trying to do everything. Chris Jericho should be on the announce team. Just be next to. I almost called him in my head. I called him Luchasaurus. Excalibur. I don't know why I did that, but just go on the announce team. You're good on the announce team. Maybe do a one-off match every 6 months or something like that at the stage in your career, like Sting used to. I'm over it. I'm done with it. Hook's getting it down for me because now they're just throwing him together, and I feel like they've been doing that recently. They had the best thing he had was Danhausen, and then they like moved on from him. Like,
where's Danhausen, man? Good Lord.
I know, one of my favorites. And then 3 for me on a down, and it's been on a downturn for a while now because I really like the guy. Karrion Kross And like that faction I thought was going to do a lot for him. Haven't seen anything, done anything. And he just looks weaker and weaker. And at this point, I'm hoping post WrestleMania he'll get a renewed, because some of these guys go away and you get a little bit more opening of the roster. But I don't know. Nikki, what about you?
Well, my first one was AOP. So to piggyback off what you said, hey, maybe this faction would be a thing. Like, why haven't we heard more from Paul Ellering? Because boy can talk. Like, even Scarlett can talk. Like, this should be so much more than it is, and it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Like, they had a match that last week, but almost like, oh, you have to qualify to do a qualify to do a qualify, but then on Raw you win your match and you got in. So I don't. SmackDown needs more matches. I don't know, but it's just like I don't care. I literally don't care. Like, I'm thinking back when they like DIY and the Revival FTR when they had their matches. Like, it was like amazing. Barn Burners, TLC matches, all their matches was incredible. I could not give a crap about what's happening. And that also leads me into my other two, because they're all attached. Like, we're going into a second WrestleMania that Big Bobby Lashley, has nothing. And if they do something to at this week's SmackDown, I'm sure it's going to be like an 8 or 6 man tag match. But I'm like, who cares? No one's going to get anything from winning. Like, last year, again, RIP, unfortunately, I think Bobby was supposed to do something with Bray Wyatt last year, and obviously that didn't happen. So he won the Andre on SmackDown and then came out on WrestleMania and did the Andre the Giant pose, and like, no one cares. I'm like, we're going into another mini match that Bobby Lashley has jacked.
And he's super over. I can't believe how over he is.
They chant for him so hard, and like, nothing.
It's crazy.
To a second Mania with nothing. But it also leads me into the Street Profits. Super over. Everyone, and like, were they gonna break out? Because like Montez Ford seems to be the star, but then like Hawkins lost like the crap ton of weight and it was like doing all these crazy moves, and like Tez and Bianca had that show on Hulu that like, oh, they're gonna do something with them. Nothing. Like, they won the match, but again, they have to win the match to do a match.
Well, no, they need to be heels. Like, the whole idea with, in my opinion, with them and Bobby was they were going to be heels, and they're not heels. They're
supposed to be a heel faction, but Bobby gets cheered too much. They're not. So everyone's in this weird between. Like, the 6 of them are in this weird between stuff. No one's getting over. No one's doing anything. Like, split them. Like, after Mania, split them up, put them on different brands. Like, this is not working for anybody. And like, Montez is a star. I think Bobby's a star. Like, Hawkins is good. Like, I do like Karrion Kross. I think AOP should be this big monster tag team, and no one's getting anything out of this.
Oh yeah, no one's getting anything out of this feud.
Like, and that's gonna be our piss break smoke match of Mania if that becomes a tag match.
What do you all think? Who's your top 3? Who's your 3 up, 3 down for this week, or in general the last couple of weeks? We want to hear from you all. Phone lines are open. Feel free to call in. We're gonna take some callers in another second. Steven's got a good line. He's gonna teach Hook how to write an NDA. Jack, that's pretty much the only thing at this point.
I just feel like Chris Jericho hooks himself into what's cool. Like, when
he's smart. He's a businessman.
When Cassidy was cool and they had their mimosa match, I don't want Hook anywhere near Chris Jericho. And I literally wrote that in my notes. I was like, Chris wants to be Hook's mentor. Side eye, please don't. I love when he comes out to not George's Plans. I don't know, that one rap song. It fits him so much, and he does the thing in the Chris Jericho go. I'm sorry, we got callers, we got comments.
No, sorry. No, I'm just pinning. I pinned in the chat. Sorry, while Nikki was talking. I pinned in the chat the call-in link. If anyone wants to call in, we got a new high this week. So we're pretty excited with all our live listeners. So we definitely want to hear from you all. So don't just sit back and listen. You can, but feel free to chime in on the conversation. That's the goal with all these every Friday night at 6. So the last question that I give to Nikki before we take our callers in the evening and go to the user portion.
Yep.
I already touched upon it. Nikki, what was your match of the week?
Because I agree with you. Like, I really did like the Ricochet JD match. A Shibata Osprey, again, I was freaking out to you. Like, how is this just opening Dynamite? Which is crazy. Again, Takeshita Swerve was so good. Like, I don't know if I really necessarily have, like last week, Adam was like, oh, like, Copeland, Christian killed it. I don't know if this, I really have a firm, but, like, just go watch and enjoy all the things. Again, like, I think we're at such a good point that, like, wrestling's good and we need to support good wrestling. So watch WWE, AEW, TNA, watch all the things. But I honestly, I know you want to meet a Bucker there, but I really don't have, like, a match of, I think there's been some, like,
there's been good matches all week.
And AEW, or I'm sorry, Dynamite was just good. I want good wrestling.
So, internet world out there, listener world, did you guys see anything this week that you really liked? I want to hear from you. All right, let's get into it. We've gone a pretty long time. Got some new listeners. Again, phone lines are open. It's pinned in the chat. But I think we know who this is.
Oh, no.
But he's coming in as the Easter Bunny. But don't be a lemon. Be a lime. I saw a rosebud. Sorry, I was so close to putting that in our slides this week. I was so close. That was the only thing I could think about is all the different people that played the bunny. And wasn't Justin Gabriel the bunny at one point in time?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and they never revealed anyone, or did they? I don't remember ever revealing anyone. But, and then there's a couple other people. Like, was it Alexa Bliss that was a member of the Rosebuds?
It was Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Braun Strowman. I feel like there was more, but I know those are the three.
Yeah, Braun, I remember because
there was a picture that was just like, oh, women's champion, women's champion, women's champion. But what's the Easter Bunny?
All right, sorry, we'll let him in. So, who's the Easter Bunny? Is it Steve?
Who else?
What are you thinking? What are you drinking?
I had forgotten about Adam Rose until you just mentioned it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! And he was Leo Kruger in NXT, which was a really cool, creepy gimmick that worked for him.
He was like, because he's South African, and it was this weird, like, South African had that creepy, like, crocodile, like, I'm gonna get you, and then, like, they turned him into that.
It was the leftover stalker gimmick, but done right.
Yeah, basically.
Yes.
So, Steve, what are you thinking this week? What do you got for us?
That was the most AEW episode of Raw I think there has ever been.
Agreed.
And when you say that, what do you mean by it?
I mean that, you know, with the blood and the promo, it's like they're picking up. They're picking up tricks that, you know, and AEW should be picking up tricks from their competitor as well.
Well, what's neat is that, like, I feel like every time WrestleMania season rolls around, it's always like they push the envelope. WWE pushes the envelope with blood or like a little bit more back to the Attitude Era of wrestling.
Like the Becky, Ronda, Charlotte thing when they got arrested and they kicked the window out of the cop car. Like, it seems to, like, uptick.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
No, but I mean, I still believe that this is a setup with Cody and Rock working together.
Yeah, honestly, the thing to me, and I said earlier, like, the thing that was weird is the whole lean in with, you know, your hands behind your back, and then he whispers sweet nothings into his ear, and you know Cody was turned on, but you get those tingly, electrified feelings. But regardless,
glad I had dinner already.
Yeah, seriously, think about that. Anyway, but it would have had so much more impact if you couldn't read his lip, and he said it loud enough that you could hear it too. And that's what drove me crazy. Is that, like, if it's supposed to play, and maybe it's supposed to just keep us that seed of doubt just enough. You're like, all right, we could hear him, so maybe he's still in the for the bloodline, because I still feel like there's some element of this, right? Like we all seem to tend to agree that Rock Roman's going to happen at some point in time. Rock wants it to happen, so it's going to happen. And the question is, how do we get there? And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is like, is it a situation where Rock turns on Roman and does the double agent situation, or is it more of a power struggle because the Rock's such an like these two heels are so much of egomaniacs that Roman needs to be the head of the table and the Rock is the Rock and he's the final boss and he can't be viewed as anything other than the greatest, and that's why he turns, because Rock, like in the tag match, Rock wants the pin. Like we see that all the time, like who wants the pin with these guys, and that changes everything. Like who wants the credit? So.
I guess I pose it back to Steven. Like, do you still think after him blooding him and rubbing his blood on the belt that said Mama Rose and said, Mama Rose, look at your boy, how does he say, like, oh yeah, well I was working for you, like I'm helping you?
Yeah, I think they've been in it together and planning it this whole time. I mean, remember they're both actors that have been in real shows, so they know their way around.
That's a great point. And you know what's funny is
real.
And I'm gonna put this back on Nikki, because she can't go to sleep without hearing the TV on. And the other night she had to put on Ocean's 11. And if you remember, I don't know, those of our audience who watched Ocean's 11.
Which one?
The new
George Clooney one.
The modern one.
Not the original with Sinatra.
Not the classic one. Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah, Steven's a film buff, so sorry about that. So yeah, the George Clooney one, because
I liked the George Clooney one. That's fine.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. So at the end, if you remember the scene where he has, is he called a guy Tiny or something? There's a bodyguard that the casino, not owner, what is it? The guy who runs the casino, basically hires to beat the crap out of him. And at the end, he's like, "Oh, you hit me too hard." And it's that whole thing where he's just like, "Oh, too soon." And it's like they're waiting for them to come in so that like he comes back into the room and conveniently sees like him getting his ass kicked. So it could be a situation like that, to your point, where like they're both actors, they both know, like, listen, like I need to take a beating, and it's not something that hasn't been done in other storylines. People turn all the time, and after getting their asses kicked, I feel like, and just as a swerve. So,
but also it related to that scene, let's remember it was brief, but the framing of the production truck in the background with Cena and Austin. I mean, that to me, I don't know how, but that to me was not an accident. And rain. I mean, they're definitely picking up a lot of stuff from movies and TV. There was that one shot, I forget if it was last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Zayn was leaving the ring and just followed him backstage. And it was like 2.5 minute tracking shot that just followed and veered off to this conversation between other wrestlers. I think Miz was one of them, and followed Miz out to the ring. And then in the meantime, there was stuff, there was stuff that you could see going on in the background, showing, the depth of the camera work. The first thing that came to mind when I saw that, I saw it after the fact, was I'm sure we've all seen Goodfellas, the 9-minute tracking shot as they're entering the Copa and going from their car to the table. I'm like, somebody's been studying up.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing great with that lately. But the question, I guess, and that poses an interesting thought, because a lot of people have theories on this, like, is because John Cena came out a couple weeks ago and in an interview, and he's like, I'm free the day of WrestleMania. So does John Cena show up? Do some of the, like, it would be epic. I mean, it's WrestleMania 40. It would be epic if Stone Cold shows up. And like, again, given all, and we did our brackets last week, shameless plug on the show for last week, but like we did the brackets last week about like The Rock and Austin, and that was the foil they were the foil for each other for how many years? How, if The Rock truly is the final boss and this high level ranking person that makes the bloodline that much more powerful, how awesome would it be if arguably the most popular, most powerful wrestler of all time, superstar of all time, Stone Cold, comes back to try and help? There's a lot of interesting layers of this whole, like, just like, not 6 degrees. I'm using 6 degrees of separation as like the term, but like people that are involved in different layers indirectly of this storyline. Like, just looking at the world title picture, like Seth Rollins now, just off of Raw, right, has CM Punk and Drew McIntyre indirectly involved in the world title in this bloodline feud, right? Like, there's so many different derivatives of everybody that's involved.
Honestly, to go back to the cinema and what Steven said, like, honestly, kids, it's Pulp Fiction. There's so many little stories that are interconnected and going to turn around, and like the beginning is the end and the end is the beginning, and it's all going to be a thing.
Steven, one of our commenters, Uncle Eric, wants, as a question for a caller, this is interesting.
Oh, no.
Can you name 5 wrestlers that made the jump to film in the 80s?
In the 80s?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Oh,
man, Steve, we're gonna call you statistician Steve, because you know a lot of these good stats that you keep us honest. But yeah, I know Hogan. I got Hogan.
Hogan, Piper, Terry Funk. In the 80s. Oh God. Oh, Bret Hart did some acting.
Really?
Was it Ventura?
Ace Ventura?
Was that the 80s? Yeah, Jesse Ventura.
Yeah,
Bret Hart was on a Western show for a little while. He wasn't the lead, but he was one of the regulars on the show. I can't remember the name of it. It was not a very long lasting show.
Also, King Kong Bundy was not. I don't think it was necessarily the 80s, but he was on Married with Children, because they're called the Bundys because of King Kong Bundy.
I'm just putting this up, Dave, not to cut you off. We're still going to go through. If anyone wants to call in, because I don't know if it goes to the YouTube channel, because we stream through a different service. So if anyone still wants to get their calls in, we're putting that to chat. But anyway, Steve, go on.
Well, speaking of TV, lowest ratings in 3 years for AEW.
Yeah, I saw. Sorry, I was going to pin up your comment earlier. For a great show, for another great show, but kind of Nikki's point, like, I don't know. Well, listen, to Jabba, I don't know much about him, so like to hear even what's his name, Minoru Suzuki, like. Yeah, and like, so like, she's like, oh, it should have been on a pay-per-view. You're giving this away for free.
Yeah.
I don't, like, to me personally, like, it was a great match. Like, it was a great match, and I think there's still, like, AEW is still growing to the point, like, you've only been on TV a few years, right? Like, 2-3 years, like, what are we at now? 2-3 years now? So, like, they need to have those matches that continuously. Oh, did you see what Will Ospreay did? Like the Ospreay Ricochet matches that put them on the map, because still, regardless, the casual fan is gonna be like, oh, did you see what happened? Like, some of them just still don't resonate with, like, oh, this is AEW versus WWE.
Well, that's the thing. When Punk came back, he made comments, and like Seth made comments about AEW, and it didn't get a pop or a word. Like, the casual people are not watching it, and I think they think Mercedes is going to move needles, and she hasn't.
They're going in the opposite direction.
But like, it's hard, because it's like, that's not doing great, but then you see, like, Swerve doing great, and I was like, oh, I want people to watch this, because you're missing the little nuggets that are so good when a lot of the stuff is not.
I made the comment, I'm sure you saw it, that they're almost to the point where they're going to have more people on the roster than in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
It's I mean, it's that WCW problem, though. Like, it's the same, like, amass all this talent. Like, you have, and this is what drives me crazy. Like, again, what are you doing with Malachi Aleister Black? Like, he, to me, in WWE, was a main eventer that got botched. He was actually rumored, believe it or not, he was rumored to win the Royal Rumble. I think was it the year Cody, like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, when he was, I'm blanking on it, but basically Paul Heyman came out in an interview and said that the year it was Lesnar, someone on the.
It was 2021.
Yes, it was like 2021 or 20.
Yeah,
and basically, he was rumored to win the Rumble that year.
And Ronda won, and Becky shit on Ronda this week, which I love. But side note,
yeah, it's pretty good. So like, he's another guy that just like lost in the shuffle. Like again,
it's like everyone makes the joke that like Tony Khan's Andy from Toy Story is like, I don't want to play with you anymore, and the toys get thrown aside. So like, I'm hoping again, like so far so good with like Swerve. But like Monet can go the same way. Like she's not moving the needle. Like Adam Cole's whatever, Wardlow's whatever. Like you have Lance Archer and Jake the Snake that you're doing Jack with.
Well, Wardlow, I thought was gonna like. I knew they were gonna struggle.
Bigger than he is.
Powerhouse Hobbs is another big guy that could have been like used. I mean, Wardlow was on.
Honestly,
Brian Cage.
Ricky Starks is great on the mic. You put him with Big Bill. You have them win the belts, and you take them off, and they've done nothing.
Yeah, it's been like he's got a lot. I think the writing needs to be better for AEW with the talent that they have. They could still between Moxley, Malachi Black, whatever we're calling
Moxley, Brian Okada, the Young Bucks, and why are you
and Ospreay, like those five names alone. Well, those five names alone in your main event picture.
And the women's like Toni Storm is fucking killing. You have Thunder Rosa, like you have Deonna Purrazzo, who I love. Like I know Britt Baker's been off TV. Like even like I really like Julia Hart. I think she's grown up. Like I think Willow, like Chris Statlander, like. You should be so much flipping better than you are. Like, look at your talent. Like, why are you bad? Like, why is stuff not great? But again, you have these little gems that are, you know, Asuka. Oh, that's another thing. That's a side note. Ospreay, Shibata, like Kingston. Like, you've got
there's so much talent, main event level talent in that whole roster that they don't use. Yep. I'm sure some of our listeners can let us know. Like who's someone in AEW that you is
Miro.
misused? Miro. Yeah, Miro.
Oh, him and CJ got divorced.
Yeah, that's it. Well,
but you know, like, and where's
she's gonna go? Listen, let's be honest. Everyone knows CJ Parker is gonna go where she belongs with Nick Nemeth. In Impact, because I remember. Well, that was a whole thing that like.
But again,
that name redacted wanted to get Nick Nemeth and them together, but so it's kind of like. But anyway,
again, like where's Danhausen? Where's Miro? Like Kip Sabian, I liked. Like Butcher's barely doing anything. He's got the Rampage match with Dustin.
Like if I was Tony's father. Because that's whose money this is that Tony is losing. You know, Tony's father is going to eventually get tired of losing money and having to worry about selling extra tickets to the Jacksonville Jaguars games.
Dad, can I get more for my allowance? I really want to sign another Japanese wrestler. It's supposed to be the next big thing.
I would tell if I was Tony's father, I would tell Tony, stop collecting wrestlers like they're Pokemon. Cut the roster by at least half. Hire a booker who knows what they're doing. Maybe D'Amore. He seems to be available. I don't know who else would be.
D'Amore would be that's actually a great.
That would be the best they can. Oh, if Tony can get him in, money.
Yeah, if they want to reverse it, because I don't think this is. Unsalvageable. I remember there was a period SmackDown was taping on Tuesday to broadcast on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And the SmackDown tapings were drawing about as many people as AEW is now to their arenas. And they were in full-size arenas too. And that was with, I think, Daniel Bryan as one of the leads. I forget how far back this goes. This is maybe at least 10 years. And they weren't really drawing anything, and the ratings were, I mean, they weren't as bad as AEW's, but still not great. But SmackDown eventually pulled themselves out of the muck first, I think, by getting themselves out of the tape situation in the middle of the week. I mean, so it's not impossible for AEW to reverse the flow.
Well, the thing is, like, and it's nothing wrong, like, and they're not on that, like, that's micro level. There's nothing wrong with what Impact does, like, or NXT for that matter. If you fill up a smaller arena, it still looks better. I think we lost Steve. But Steve, we definitely hear you on that. Like, if you fill up a smaller arena, it's still filled with loud,
it's
chanting fans that get.
It's gotta be the vibe. Like, you can be with 50 people, 500 people, 5,000 people, but the people that are there need to be in and need to be chanting, because there's so many times you watch a show and people are quiet and it's weird. Again, we went through the whole flipping pandemic era when you didn't hear anything and it was weird. Like, you have to go to shows and you have to be loud, you have to participate, you have to do a thing.
Yeah, it's funny because sorry. I'm on a new stool tonight, so we're trying to get a little higher level up.
We're very
so
much
I'm not like this like I normally am. So anyway, but like I think there's something to be said about, like, getting a reaction, whether it's in a small, like, even in a small, like, how many times do I'm sure us, our listeners, like, go to indie shows and it's like an empty gym with 20 people. Yeah. But, like, how much better would it be if you just did a little bit smaller gym, like something like that? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You can film. We were watching. So, spoiler alert, because we have a lot of listeners in right now. Again, on Wednesday, we have former ECW heavyweight champion PJ Polacco, formerly known as Just Incredible. So it's actually Wednesday. I'm going to move into the call-in link for a second. It's this Wednesday at 6 o'clock, your normal happy hour. 6 o'clock Eastern time, if you're not on Eastern time, for all of our fans overseas and all across the United States.
About all things ECW, like Paulie going into the Hall of Fame, WrestleMania is in Philly this year. Like, I think I'm like, oh my God, we're interviewing somebody, but it's gonna be fun.
So anyway, so the segue that I was using this promo for, no, it worked out perfectly. So is that, one of the other shows that we were watching is actually, and we were talking about, crazy bumps with the Falcon Arrow. You mentioned it, and it really brought this back to me. So ECW did a show in the Cobb County, I guess it was like a prison. And they made reference to the Big Boss Man there and all that stuff. And
who's the man?
And PJ does a crazy. It scared the daylights out of me because he does a crazy bump on a superplex through a table. That he's battling Mikey Whipwreck in this match, and basically, so go back. I can't remember what pay-per-view it is off the top of my head, but again, similar situation of just like, oh my gosh, it's such a dangerous bump. But point being, back to my original point, like, going into smaller arenas, ECW absolutely, like, made it work everywhere they went. They made money off of that. Like, Paul Heyman was brilliant at packing those arenas. Yeah. And you don't need to go. It's great to fill up these arenas and do Wembley and all that stuff and bring back the nostalgia. And that's great. If you want to do that once a year and you can book it out because it's overseas and you're only going to England once, absolutely. But it's terrible when you see, like, Edge and I'm saying Edge and Christian. I keep saying it. I'm saying it every week. It's Edge. I don't care about this Coke garbage. Regardless.
Finish your point.
But him, like, having these great matches and, like, Okada's debut and Ospreay's debut in front of these, like, smaller crowds doesn't do him. And it's not because the crowd's, it's just, as long as you have enough energy and you put them in front of a good group, it's going to just ignite the passion of the whole fan base, and the fan base, more importantly, that's watching on TV.
Like, you can't do, like, I feel like you're doing this big basketball arena like Milwaukee. Like, you go into it and, like, when we saw AEW in AC, I'm like, that was, like, the perfect arena. We had a flipping blast. Like, maybe do your smaller thing. And I think that's why the ECW arena worked so hard. Like, this is our home. This is our little crowd, and we have our people there. So don't think you're going to sell out like the football stadium. Do your do what works. Like, I don't know. And I think they booked so many big things out because they thought Punk was going to draw all these things. I'm hoping the latter part of 2024, they'll go back to the Tiny. Because I would love, like, we had a blast. I would love to go see them in AZ again.
Yeah, that was a perfect venue for them. And honestly, it was, for us, so we're broadcasting out of New Jersey, but for us, Atlantic City is about 2 hours and change, 2.5 hours from our house. But the area, like, where they did it, it was Boardwalk Hall, which is right on the boardwalk. There's a number of hotels along the boardwalk. So if you're out of town, you can come visit. Like, it was an intimate setting. It was a perfect environment to watch. Same thing with, like, any show. Like, I feel like Nikki and I go to a lot of shows, whether it's comedy or music or whatever, and that more intimate setting, it just makes for a better environment. A lot of
ways. I don't know if anyone who's the Used fans, like, I saw them at PNC, and then I saw them at PNC Big Art Center for New Jersey people, and also saw them at Starland Ballroom, which is a small, probably a tenth of the size. I saw them in this little intimate setting, and it was so good. Sometimes wrestling needs to be intimate, and sometimes it needs to be smaller, sometimes it needs to be big.
Exactly.
But I don't, and that's a hard, because everyone's like, look at the hard cam, there's nobody there, but that doesn't take away from what's happening in the ring. Like, Cope and Christian put on a good match. Like, Swerve is doing good. Like, Ospreay Okada's doing good.
Also the hard cam seats are the most expensive seats. Let's be honest. So the average fan like you or me are not sitting there.
I don't want to say just because you're not drawing the venues that you booked out 7, 8, 12 months in advance shouldn't reflect on what your actual product is, because like Shibata, Ospreay was great, Takeshita, Swerve was great. That we didn't talk about Tony Storm, but I love Tony Storm. Like,
oh yeah,
just because they're not drawing in house doesn't take away how actually good the product is and should be.
Steven's having an internet problem, but he said, I'd much rather see a show in ECW Arena or Manhattan Center packed with representatives than Prudential Center third full. I agree, 100%. Like that, it's just so much better. And again, it just makes it like the cameras pick it up because the cameras pick it up, the mics pick it up. It's just so much overall better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as we have some listeners in here, I'm gonna pin it up to the chat for a few more minutes. We're going a little bit longer than we normally go, but we're having a blast. It's a Friday night. Hey, we're only 28 minutes out of SmackDown. So
tell us what you're drinking, what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm going to post it up.
Write the thing.
So if anyone wants to call in, we're going to open the phone line for another couple of minutes.
Steven, thank you, as always.
Steve, always appreciate the stats and the fact checking, to be honest. And, well, really good topics and conversation.
Always. Thank you, Steve. Sit down!
But yeah, give you a thumbs up. But yeah, what's everyone else thinking? Like, we're going into SmackDown. This is my favorite time of the year because the weather gets warm in the Northeast. The weather gets warm. We've dealt with. It's been more mild, but we've dealt with winter and snow and all that garbage. And coldness, and I hate the cold. And now it warms up, and if you can't hear Jackson in the background, that's our dog snoring away. Right, it's not a person; it's an actual dog. That apparently we're not interesting enough for our dog, but it's tough to keep his attention. Anyway, regardless, but this is the greatest time of year because all the booking, everyone comes back for that WrestleMania payday, that situation, and. Like, how many instances in the same, like, just think about everything we've seen, all the stars we've seen in the last week. We've seen The Rock. We've seen, he's not competing, but CM Punk. We've seen Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, just since we did the last show. I want to count Paul Heyman because he's been Hall of Fame. But
we didn't even touch really
on AEW. You've had Okada show up. Right, he's been around. You've had Will Ospreay matches. This is such a great time. The WrestleMania season is such a great season to be a fan. So I absolutely just love it. And it's Christmas season for us as wrestling fans, right? Let's all enjoy it and make the most of it. So I'm putting the call up. If anyone else wants to call, last call for the calls. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Last call for alcohol. So finish your win.
Let us know if you want to write in. Let us know what you're thinking, what you're drinking.
But we'll be here Wednesday. We'll be here next Friday.
Actually, thank you. Sorry.
Like, share, subscribe. Flippin' PJ. Incredible PJ is going to be, we're talking to him. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty fun. Wednesday, again, 6 p.m. Eastern time, whatever that is locally for you. If you can't make it live, we'll miss you. But you can send in your questions. If you can't read that, the email is Nick Club, just like Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour. So think about it like this. Nick Club, WHH @gmail. So send in your questions. This is the first of what we hope is a line of interviews that we're going to have over the course of our podcast. We're not sure if we're going to do them standalone or incorporate them on our Friday night shows, but this one will be the first standalone. We got them for the full hour. So feel free to write in, call in. Here's the kicker. You got to be a subscriber to ask a question. So you got to let us know I'm a subscriber, blah, blah, blah. Nicole, Teodoro. And here's my question for PJ.
I'm going to submit all my questions to our email address. Just to be, I'm official.
And I'm going to conveniently move them all to spam. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But anyway, so we're excited. That's the first of we're doing a special WrestleMania weekend edition because there's just so much wrestling going on. So we're starting on Wednesday with PJ, aka Just Incredible. We're going to talk about everything and more importantly, his career. But hey, we're in Philadelphia. Who better than a former ECW champion to talk about everything ECW, Paul Heyman going into the Hall of Fame. We're really excited about that. Then we kick it back Friday with our normal 6 p.m. happy hour show. Predictions for, I'm assuming hopefully the card will be released for Saturday. We'll have a better idea. But we're going to try and do some of our predictions for Saturday's night's main event, which at least will be the Rock's tag team match. So we'll at least have that one match that we know of for WrestleMania. Then we come back Sunday after night one of WrestleMania, recapping everything, what we've all seen. We want to hear from all of you. So get ready for that. Sunday, we haven't lined up a time for that. That'll probably be more early afternoon before everything gets crazy again for Sunday night. And then we're probably going back live again Monday night, right before Raw after WrestleMania, which we all know is absolutely, as Nikki likes to say, bananas.
Bananas.
So we're excited. It's a fun time to be a fan. That being said, doesn't look like we have any more callers for the evening or comments. So looking forward, we are, it's 7:38 Eastern time right now, which brings us to 22 minutes before SmackDown is about to air live. So looking ahead, just a couple things, a couple bullet notes on what we got for SmackDown. Me personally, I'm excited. Jade Cargill's first appearance as officially signed.
There's so many things.
That contract.
So that's going to set up the women's match. Six woman tag match.
For me. So Jade will be there. Mm-hmm. We have and then actually there's probably Bianca versus Dakota Kai is actually scheduled for the evening.
So that's good. Again, 6 woman tag.
So very exciting for the evening. I'm excited because Jade Cargill, I'm a big Jade Cargill fan, and I really think that she's going to do a lot of great things in WWE. So pretty pumped for SmackDown. So let us know. Until next time, we will see you on Wednesday. So again, different time, weekday time. Wednesday, 2 hours before your local AEW Dynamite. Figure it that way. So we're going to bleed our PJ interview into Dynamite. So, as always, this has been a pleasure. Again, if you're new here, to all our new listeners, make sure before you leave, you hit the subscribe button. You like, leave a comment below if you agree with what we say, don't agree. We like to hear all the stuff. But until next time, you don't have to go home.
But you can't stay here. Bye.